I was sitting across from David in a dimly lit restaurant, the kind of place that makes everything feel unreal, like a scene from a movie. I laughed easily, tossing jokes his way, looking like I didn't have a worry in the world. To anyone watching, it probably seemed like I was having the perfect night. But inside, I was falling apart. My stomach was twisted in knots, my instincts screaming that something was wrong. Every time my phone buzzed on the table, my heart jumped. I'd glance at it, force a smile, and pretend nothing was happening. David didn't notice. He was relaxed, confident, swirling his wine, acting like the world outside this table didn't exist. That's who he was, careless, exciting, unpredictable. Everything my husband John wasn't. And that's exactly why I was here. John was steady, kind, safe, the kind of man I once thought I'd grow old with. But David was danger wrapped in charm, and somehow I let myself fall for it. I told myself I'd end it, over and over. Every time we met, I promised myself it would be the last. And every time, I failed. Tonight felt different, though. My phone vibrated again. I looked down, and my blood ran cold. Enjoy tonight. It's going to end soon. The message was from John. My hands started sweating, my pulse pounding in my ears. How did he know? What did he mean by end? The sounds of the restaurant faded into nothing. I could barely breathe. David noticed the color drain from my face and leaned closer. "You okay?" he asked, concern in his voice, reaching for my hand. I nodded, forcing a smile, but my world was already cracking. He kissed my hand softly, then my lips, unaware of the storm raging inside me. All I could think about was John's message, that warning, that calm, terrifying promise. Because I knew one thing for sure. This night wasn't going to end the way I planned. It all started a month earlier. John always trusted me, never questioned where I went or who I was with. But one night, when I came home late from a dinner with friends, everything changed. As I leaned in to kiss him goodnight, he caught the scent, a sharp, expensive cologne that wasn't his. John didn't confront me. He didn't raise his voice. He watched, quietly, carefully. He noticed how I guarded my phone, how I smiled at messages that weren't meant for him, how distant I'd become. I thought I was being careful. I thought I was smart. I was wrong. John saw everything, and he wasn't just hurt. He was planning something. Every smile he gave me after that, every kind word, every gentle touch, it was all calculated. Because John was never the kind of man who exploded. He waited. That was never John's style. He didn't explode. He didn't confront. He waited. He let me sink deeper into my own lies, let me believe I was still in control, while he quietly built the trap. My phone buzzed again. My heart nearly stopped. With trembling fingers, I looked down. "You really think you can keep this hidden?" The words blurred as fear flooded my chest. My stomach turned violently. I sat frozen, gripping my phone like an anchor, trying not to draw attention. I couldn't just run. Not in a place like this, where every movement felt exposed. The anxiety was suffocating. The walls felt like they were closing in. David kept talking, but his voice faded into background noise. I scanned the room, searching for something, anything, that might explain the dread crawling up my spine. And then I saw them. At a table not far from ours. My uncle, my cousin and his wife, my sister, all sitting perfectly still, all staring directly at me. Their faces were cold, silent, unforgiving. No words were needed. Their eyes said everything. They knew. My hands began to shake. The air felt thin, like I couldn't pull in enough oxygen. My family was old school, strict, unforgiving when it came to betrayal. And now they were here, watching me unravel in public. One by one, they stood. Not a single word spoken. They kept their eyes on me as they walked out of the restaurant, leaving me drowning in their silent judgment. My thoughts spiraled. John did this. He had known the entire time, and instead of exposing me himself, he made sure the people whose opinions mattered most would witness my downfall. Days earlier, John had met with them in secret. Calm, controlled. He laid everything out, messages, photos, proof I never thought would see daylight. At first, they didn't believe him. Then the truth settled in. John asked only one thing. Don't confront her. Let her destroy herself. They agreed. And now, they were here, watching his plan unfold perfectly. The restaurant no longer felt warm or romantic. It felt heavy, dark, like everyone could see the guilt stamped across my face. David leaned in, his brow furrowed. "Emily, what's wrong?" he whispered. "You're shaking. Talk to me." I forced a smile, but it was useless. I couldn't explain it. The stares, the messages, the quiet revenge closing in on me from every direction. "I love you," David said suddenly, squeezing my hand. "Whatever's happening, we'll face it together. I'm not going anywhere." He stood slightly, urgency in his voice. "Let's get out of here. Somewhere quiet. Just us." My chest tightened. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to run. But the words wouldn't come, because deep down, I knew there was nowhere left to hide. Then it happened. A soft buzz. David's phone. He glanced at the screen, and everything about him changed. His smile vanished. The color drained from his face, and for the first time since I'd known him, I saw it in his eyes. Fear. Pure, unfiltered fear. Without a word, he jumped to his feet, yanked out his wallet. His hands shook as he threw cash onto the table, barely counting. "David, wait," I said, my voice breaking. "What's wrong? What happened?" He wouldn't look at me, didn't answer, just moved faster, like he was running from something invisible. I reached for him. "Please, let me come with you." He raised his hand, stopping me cold. "No," he snapped. His voice was sharp, distant, nothing like the man who'd said he loved me minutes ago. "I've got serious problems. This is going to take a while." My stomach dropped. As he turned away, I caught a glimpse of his phone before the screen went dark. A message from a woman. The name didn't register, but the panic did. "David, please," I called after him. He didn't stop. He looked back once, just once, his face hard, empty. "Take care, Emily," he muttered. And then he was gone. I sat there, frozen. I had thought David was free, no ties, no complications. But the truth hit me all at once. He'd been hiding an entire life, a wife, a marriage tangled in money, property, obligations he couldn't escape. David didn't want freedom. He wanted secrecy. And John had figured it out long before I ever did. Quietly, methodically. Days before this dinner, John had uncovered everything. David's double life, his marriage, the lies. And instead of confronting him, John did something far worse. He told David's wife. That buzz on David's phone, that was his world collapsing. And now, sitting alone at the table, I understood the truth. David wasn't coming back. He never was. My phone buzzed again, The restaurant felt unbearably quiet. My family was gone. David was gone. And I was completely alone. The message lit up the screen. "Don't bother coming home, Emily. You don't have a home anymore." My heart slammed against my ribs. Panic flooded my body. I jumped up so fast my chair nearly tipped over. I ran out of the restaurant, into the night. My hands shook as I fumbled for my keys, my breathing shallow and frantic. I drove like nothing else mattered, clinging to the desperate hope that I could still fix this, explain it, beg. But deep down, I already knew. John had been planning this for a long time. When I pulled up to the apartment, a sick feeling twisted in my gut. I opened the door, and the warmth that once felt like home was gone. The place was cold, empty. My footsteps echoed as I stepped inside, and then I saw it. In the middle of the living room stood the boxes, cardboard, neatly packed, labeled, my clothes, my shoes, my books, my life. Everything I'd built with John reduced to a few stacks shoved against the wall. On the shelf, 2 piles of paper waited for me. Divorce papers and a lease, torn clean in half. My breath caught in my throat. The truth slammed into me all at once. John had canceled the lease. I had until tomorrow. My legs gave out. I dropped to my knees, the sobs tearing out of me before I could stop them. My hands shook as I grabbed the divorce papers, the weight of my own choices crushing down on my chest. John had planned this perfectly. The apartment had always been in his name, something I'd never questioned, never worried about. And now I understood why. While I was out at dinner with David, believing everything was under control, John had moved quickly, quietly. He packed my things, signed the papers, ended it. No yelling, no screaming matches, no second chances. John didn't want a scene. He wanted me to feel the loss when it was already irreversible. As I sat there on the floor, tears blurring my vision, my phone buzzed one last time. A message from John. "You made your choice, Emily." That was it. I collapsed onto the cold floor, crying so hard I could barely breathe. The apartment, once warm, full of plans and laughter, now felt like a graveyard. Empty, lifeless. Only those boxes remained, silent reminders of everything I'd thrown away. I called him, once, twice, each ring cut deeper than the last. He didn't answer. John was done. My mind drifted back to the future we'd planned. In 3 months, we were supposed to buy a house, leave this town, start over. We talked about kids, about growing old together. All of it gone, because I wanted a thrill. I never meant to lose John. I never meant to destroy my life. David was supposed to be harmless, a secret escape, nothing more. Instead, he detonated everything. Desperate, I thought of him. Maybe David could help. Maybe he could explain. Maybe he wouldn't leave me alone in this. I called. Nothing. Again. Silence. Then it hit me. He'd blocked me. Just like that, David vanished, slipping back into the shadows where our affair had always lived. I meant nothing. I had been nothing but a secret. The realization crushed me. Anger flared, rage at myself, at him, at the world. I jumped to my feet and kicked the nearest box, sending it sliding across the room. I tore into another, clothes and books spilling out onto the floor, pieces of a life I no longer had. I screamed, kicked, broke down, until my body gave out. 20 minutes later, I collapsed into the mess I'd made, shaking, empty, broken. Tears streamed down my face as the truth finally settled in. I had lost everything, and there was no one left to blame but myself. I lay there, gasping for air, completely lost. My hands wouldn't stop shaking as I reached for my phone and called my uncle. He answered after a few rings. His voice was firm, cold. The same look he'd given me at the restaurant burned into my memory. "Uncle, I'm in trouble," I whispered. "I need you." There was a pause, then his voice cut through me. "There are no excuses, Emily. What you did brought shame on this family." Tears spilled down my face. "I'm sorry. I never meant for it to end like this. Please, I don't know what to do." He sighed, long and heavy. "I promised your father I'd look out for you," he said slowly. "But you didn't just betray your husband. You disappointed your father. You embarrassed all of us." My chest tightened. "I didn't want this," I sobbed. "I never planned any of it." Silence stretched between us. Then, finally, his tone softened, just enough to hurt more. "Family doesn't abandon its own," he said. "I won't turn my back on you. But understand this, you have a long road ahead. Trust isn't given back easily. Things will never be the same until you earn it." Shame burned deep in my bones. "Thank you," I whispered. "Don't thank me yet," he replied sharply. "You haven't paid the price." The line went dead. My phone slipped from my hand as the weight of everything crashed down on me. I couldn't move. I curled up on the cold floor, surrounded by boxes and silence, letting the darkness swallow me whole. Hours passed. I didn't cry anymore. I didn't think. I just lay there, empty. When the first light of morning crept through the window, it painted weak shadows across the walls of the apartment that was no longer mine. That was the moment I understood something. This wasn't the end. It was the consequence, and I would have to live with it. Morning came without mercy. The light filled the apartment, but it didn't bring warmth. It only showed me the truth more clearly, the boxes, the empty shelves, the silence that no longer felt temporary. I stood up slowly, my body sore, my head heavy. I looked around one last time. This place used to be my life. Now it was just a stop I'd already overstayed. I packed what was left into my car. No destination, no plan, just movement, because staying still hurt too much. I checked my phone. No messages, no missed calls. John hadn't written again. David never would. My family was quiet. The world had moved on without me. I drove until the city faded behind me. Stopped at a cheap motel on the edge of nowhere. The kind of place you don't ask questions at, and nobody asks them of you. I paid in cash. That night, lying on a stiff bed, staring at a cracked ceiling, I finally let myself think. About John, about how calm he was, how patient, how I mistook silence for weakness and kindness for something guaranteed. I thought about David too, how exciting he seemed, how alive he made me feel, and how quickly he disappeared when the truth showed up. That's when it hit me. The thrill was never love. It was escape, and I traded something real for something hollow. Days passed. I found temporary work, nothing glamorous, just enough to survive. I stopped wearing makeup, stopped pretending I was fine. For the first time in a long while, I sat alone with my choices. No distractions, no secrets. One evening, my phone buzzed. Not John, not David. A message from my uncle. "Your things are safe here if you need time. But understand this. Forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting." I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed back, "I know." I didn't ask for sympathy. I didn't ask to be saved. Because some lessons aren't meant to be softened. They're meant to stay. And every night when the room goes quiet, I hear it clearly. The sound of a life I destroyed and the long road ahead I have to walk alone. Years passed. Not quickly, not gently. Time didn't heal. It taught. I rebuilt my life in small, quiet pieces. New city, new routine, no secrets, no double lives. Just work, silence, and the weight of memory I carried every day. I never heard from David again. I stopped wondering where he went. Some people exist in your life only to show you who they truly are and who you became around them. John never reached out, and I never tried again. I saw him once, across the street, by accident. He was laughing, standing beside a woman who looked at him the way I used to, with trust. There was a ring on her finger, the same hand that once held mine. He didn't see me, and that was the kindest thing he ever did. I stood there, unseen, and understood something I wish I'd learned earlier. Love isn't the thrill. It isn't the chase. It isn't the secret. Love is choosing the same person when no one is watching. I went home that night and sat alone with that truth. It hurt, but it didn't destroy me, because this time the pain was honest. I never became the woman I planned to be, but I became someone who knows the cost of betrayal. And some nights, when the city goes quiet, I don't cry anymore. I remember, and I live with it.